My name is Bill Swantner. I am a Texas A&M University AgriLife Extension Certified Master Gardener volunteer. This is the third video out of Chapter 3, because Chapter 3 is where it really starts getting sort of detailed. Again, these videos are not encouraged, endorsed, supported, or sponsored by absolutely any Master Gardener Association, any place. This is simply me going through the book, learning as I go along to better understand the various parts of horticulture and the Master Gardener Handbook. This is Chapter 3. Chapter 3 talks about plant development. We looked at gymnosperms, which is a naked seed, and angiosperm, which is a seed in a vessel. In the end, and that's the flowering plants. In the angiosperms, we looked at monocots and dicots. We looked at annuals, biennials, and perennials. And in perennials, we looked at woody and herbaceous. We spoke about plant structure, where you have roots, which is the vegetative part of the plant, where you have roots, the stem, and the buds, flowers, and fruit. And then we looked at the reproductive part of the plant in the second video with the male pollen, the female ovule. We looked at the various parts of the plant and how the plant is pollinated. We talked about complete and incomplete, perfect and imperfect. And now we're on plant process and the role of hormones. We're going to do it in the way the book has it. The first thing mentioned in this part of the chapter, in Chapter 3, is the plant hormones. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, abscisic acid, ethylene. And then we'll take a look at photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, and translocation. Translocation is not in the chapter. This video is going to come in two parts. I'm going to give you the thumbnail. This is what it means. And then you can stop watching the video, or you can keep watching the videos. I try to make more sense out of it, because for me, we are certified master gardeners, which means we have met A&M's minimum and our local associations minimum requirements. My goal is to truly become a master gardener. So the second part of this video is going to be a lot of detail, because I think if we really want to be a master gardener, some of the stuff we should know. So here we go. Very briefly. In photosynthesis, plants make sugar using sunlight. Technically, it is glucose. Respiration is where plants take those sugars and they turn them into energy. Transpiration is where the plants move the water up and down through the vascular system, phloem and xylem. And then translocation, which is not in the chapter, is where plants move sugars to where they're needed. I'm going to look into this more detailed, but that's basically it is. Photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, translocation, not in the chapter, but I think it's important. The hormones, very briefly. Auxins, think of auxins as the plant's growth directors. They help a plant grow taller, and they help the roots grow the correct way. Cytokinins, they're like the fountain, the plant's fountain of youth. They help with shoots and leaves to grow. They keep the plant looking young and healthy. Gibberellins, you can think of this is not in the book. You can think of this as the plant's growth spurt hormones. They help the stems grow longer and sprout seeds to sprout. Abscisic acid, this is the plant's stress manager. It helps the plants deal with tough situations like drought, freeze, cold weather. Then there's ethylene. Ethylene is the plant's ripening hormone. It helps fruit ripe, become colorful, and it tells the leaves when it's time to fall off. That is the third part of the third chapter in a nutshell. And you can really stop there. Just kind of just understand these 5 hormones act in certain ways. And then there's photosynthesis, transpiration, respiration, and translocation. I think we should know, but it's not in the book. So here we go. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which the plant uses sunlight, it uses carbon dioxide, and it uses water. And think of it as as you put a pot of water on the stove and you turn the heat up. Well, the heat starts to agitate the water molecules, and the water molecules start to move. You see it boiling, and it produces steam. And if you drain the pot completely, you'll see a possible ring of minerals that were in the water. In a similar way, the sunlight hits the leaf. The leaf absorbs the red and the blue, and it reflects the green, which is why leaves look like they're green. So absorbs the sunlight, and it sort of agitates the photosynthesis process. And using water and carbon dioxide, the photosynthesis process starts. The sugars that is produced is technically a glucose. And the glucose is then turned into sucrose, and it is transported throughout the plant. These sugars are used for energy, for growth, for storage. When needed, the sucrose can be converted back to glucose. And that where the glucose is broken down is called cellular respiration. And so here's a picture. It's interesting because they're sort of opposites. Photosynthesis needs light. It can come from the sun or it can come from artificial lights, providing the artificial lights have the full spectrum of color, takes in carbon dioxide, takes in water. Cellular respiration is where the plant takes in oxygen, releases carbon dioxide, takes in sugar, takes in water. So, photosynthesis. Second thing is respiration. Respiration is how plants use the energy that is stored in sugar. Plants take in oxygen from the air, and you just saw the diagram. They use this oxygen to break down the sugars, the glucose that was made from sunlight, that the plant needs to grow and stay healthy. Photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration. Transpiration is like the plant's circulatory system that's carrying water and essential elements from the roots up to the leaves. It's like a natural air conditioning. When water evaporates from the leaves, the plant cools down, sort of like us. When we sweat, we cool down. The plant, when it sort of metaphorically sweats, it cools down. Transpiration moves the water and the minerals throughout the plant. It helps maintain the plant's shape and firmness. It's called turgor pressure. When a plant is fully upright, it has good turgor pressure, or turgor. When the plants start to lean over a little bit, that means the turgor pressure is not what it should be, which is important to know when we go to take cuttings for propagation, but that is the next video. All right, the rates, the transpiration rates are affected by temperature, humidity, wind, sunlight, just like we are. And transpiration plays a role in the water cycle, returning large amounts of water into the atmosphere. So, it transports minerals from the soil to the plants, to the xylem. It cools plants through evaporation. It moves sugar and plant chemicals and maintains turgor pressure. And there you have a diagram of it. And then finally, translocation. This is not in the book. The sucrose that is made from the photosynthetic process is transported from the leaf through the phloem to be used and stored, and used for a later time, and that is called translocation. So here are some side notes. The minimum temperature for photosynthesis is around 50 to 60. It can take place in a cooler temperature, but to be really efficient, it needs to be 50 to 60 degrees temperature. The optimal range for photosynthesis is 65 to 85. That's really the best temperature range for photosynthesis to take place. The maximum is 95 degrees. So what difference does that make? Well, I'm surrounded by oak trees. When people trim oak trees, oftentimes they cut out the bottom part because they want that pretty canopy. Well, that pretty canopy, when it hits 95 degrees, for the most part, those leaves on the outer part, let's draw a tree here. At 95 degrees or 100 degrees, which last year we had 60 days of 100-degree temperature, these outside leaves, they stop photosynthesizing. It's just too hot. It's 100 degrees outside. They're not going to photosynthesize. What keeps the tree healthy is the undergrowth down in here. The undergrowth back here that sometimes looks sloppy on a tree, and people want that cut out. And that's such a huge mistake in oak trees. And people will do what they need to do. And some of these arborists, they are certified arborists, they will cut down wherever they need to cut down because people like that lion tail or poodle look, and that's really not healthy for the trees. When it's over 95 degrees, these outside leaves really slow down the photosynthesis process, which creates sugar, which creates energy, which is stored in the tree roots, and the trees don't have it because people cut away the interior part. So that's why this stuff makes any difference. All right. So more specifically, for our part of the country, many of the native plants, native and well adapted, and the superstar plants have adapted to thrive in hot temperatures. Their photosynthesis process may be more efficient, or it functions just a little differently than other plants that are not from here. Our plants are used to 90, 95 degree temperature, whereas plants from Michigan, Maine, parts of the upper Northwest, they're not used to these long days of continuous 100 degree temperatures. That's why in our chapter 2 video about earth kind landscaping, this is connecting the dots. That's why well adapted and native and Texas superstar plants matter. All right, enough of that. Cool seasons. Some plants, especially cool season plants and grasses and certain wildflowers, may have an optimal temperature range for photosynthesis to work. Some plants simply means the opposite of the first one, the heat tolerance. Some plants are adapted for doing the photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration at lower temperatures because they've evolved that way. And then finally, depending on the plant, many times the pollen becomes less viable. This actually goes to the second video. Less viable at 95 degrees. And what difference does that make? You're trying to nurse that one tomato plant that got you all those tomatoes, and it's June and it's 100 degrees, and it's July and it's 100 degrees, and that plant is struggling to stay alive, but you're keeping it because it has those 3 buds. Well, chances are the pollen in those 3 buds is going bad. And when a plant gets sick, and we're jumping to plant pathology, but when a plant gets sick, it will send out indicators to insects to come eat me and destroy me because my growing season's over with. But what we insist on doing is keeping that plant alive when the plant is inviting insects, and the plant wins. So we invite insects into our garden because sometimes we hold on to plants too long. So the point is simply that pollen in some plants will start going bad at 95 degrees. And if you want to know about a particular plant, look it up online. All right, so this is a review. As I've said before, redundancy is how my brain works. Photosynthesis, the sunlight makes sugars. Respiration, those sugars are converted into a different energy. Transpiration, that energy is moved throughout the plants, and translocation is where they are moved exactly to where they are needed, and that is not in the book. All right, let's take a look at plant hormones. Abscisic acid, auxin, cytokinin, ethylene, gibberellin. All right, just a reminder, auxins are the plant's growth directors, cytokinins are the fountain of youth, gibberellins are the growth spurt, abscisic acid is the stress manager, and ethylene is the ripening plant. So let's take a look at these. There are 5 of them listed in the book, and then look a little deeper at each one of them. Abscisic acid, it induces endormancy, helps the plants to respond to stress, tells the stomata to close. It promotes seed dormancy because of unfavorable conditions. It's too dry, it's too cold, and so abscisic acid encourages the seed to go dormant. Then you have auxin. Auxin promotes the formation of roots and regulates shoot growth. We had that in one of the previous videos where you have a limb, and the tip of the limb is apical or apical dominance, and it controls the rest of the limb. If this is removed, then all of a sudden you have a lot of shoots coming out. So that regulates shoot growth. All right, cytokinin stimulates cell division and growth, and it delays the leaf aging process. Ethylene induces flowering, fruit ripening, and leaf abscission. Then you have gibberellins, which promote cell division, elongation, and stimulates seed germination. And that's fascinating how these work together. Abscisic acid is ABA. It promotes dormancy, especially during unfavorable conditions, preventing the seed from germinating prematurely. It helps plants to respond to stress by stimulating, as I said earlier, the stomata to close. When the stomata closes, that reduces the water loss that's through transpiration. What abscisic acid also does, it inhibits plant growth to conserve resources. And there's a couple things you notice here. Stress, it prevents the seed from, or it promotes dormancy because of times of stress. It tells the stomata to close during times of stress. It inhibits plant growth during times of stress. And it's the key stress response system by prioritizing the plant survival, such as water conservation. Abscisic acid slows seed development by inhibiting the growth processes. It reduces, fascinating process. If you look at seeds imbibe water. What abscisic acid does is it reduces the water intake, signaling the seed to remain dormant under unfavorable conditions. What does that mean? Well, unfavorable conditions mean drought. It could mean extreme temperatures, such too cold, and the metabolic process slow down. Excessive heat, because the seed's going to dry out too quickly. Unfavorable conditions is soil compaction. The soil is too compact and the seed's not going to be able to do anything. Low levels of oxygen, light inhibition. For those seeds that need light, if there's not enough light, the abscisic acid, the ABA, is going to slow down the process of the seed. To me, that is absolutely fascinating. Elongation. Elongation is the process by which plant cells grow longer. And so abscisic acid reduces the flexibility of the cell walls. Isn't that fascinating? The abscisic acid stops the cell walls from elongating, which restricts the ability of the cells to expand. To me, that is fascinating to know. ABA can promote root elongation during drought by prioritizing the need of the roots to go deeper into the soil to access water. So a little thing called abscisic acid, ABA, plays a significant role as a hormone in the plant's development. Looking at the auxin as an overview, the second of our 5 hormones. Auxin is a growth hormone that affects how tall a plant grows, how it bends toward light, that's fascinating, and how the roots grow. It's produced at the tips of the roots and the tips of the shoots to grow. It influences phototropism. When a plant bends toward light, the auxin leaves the light. Let me do it with the other hand. When a plant goes toward light, there's auxin over here. There's auxin all over the place. Well, the auxin doesn't like the light. It goes to the opposite side of the plant, and they elongate, and that makes the plant bend, or helps the plant bend. That's fascinating. Plants bend because the auxin leaves the light side and goes to the dark side, kind of a Star Wars thing there, and it helps the plant to bend. Elongation. Then apical dominance, which I've covered a couple times. Okay, here's that phototropism. Here is your diagram right here. The hormone auxin accumulates on the shaded side because light causes auxin to break down. So why does the auxin go from the light to the dark side, because the light is going to break the oxygen down, so it goes to where the dark side is, causing the cells to elongate and the plant bends toward the light. That, to me, that's stuff that master gardeners know. Apical dominance, which I've talked about before, we'll take a look at it again. This is the dominant bud, and it controls everything down here. When that bud is removed, these have a bigger chance to, they have the ability to start becoming, to branch out more. Okay, cytokinin. Cytokinin promotes cell division in the plants, particularly in the roots and the shoots. Cytokinin help delay senescence, or the aging in leaves, by promoting chlorophyll production and maintaining self-functioning. This keeps the leaves greener and become more photosynthetically active for a longer time, and improves the plant's ability to produce energy. Cytokinins also play a role in regulating and distributing nutrients within the plants, and they stimulate the growth of lateral buds, encouraging branching and bushier plant growth. Number 4, ethylene. Ethylene is well known for its role in promoting fruit ripening. It does this, again, fascinating thing for people who want to be master gardeners. It triggers the conversion of starches to sugars, which softens the fruit, enhances the color to change, making the fruit more appealing to animals for dispersal. The animals eat the fruit, they excrete the fruit, and the seeds become future plants. Ethylene promotes senescence in leaves and flowers, leading to the aging and eventually dropping of the structures. So here you have these two hormones balancing each other. One is trying to stop the leaves from falling. The other one is encouraging the leaves to fall. This process helps to allocate resources efficiently, and it wants the older leaves to fall, because the older leaves have become less effective, less productive, and so ethylene says we need to get rid of these older leaves, but cytokinins will say, but we need to keep on some other leaves. Fascinating what happens within a plant. Let's see. Here's an example of bananas. When bananas ripen, they produce a significant amount of ethylene gas. If unripe bananas are placed in a bowl with ripe bananas, the ethylene gas released by the ripe bananas will encourage the unripe bananas to ripen more quickly. That's why people often place green bananas in proximity to older bananas or in a paper bag, because it speeds up the ripening process. Fascinating stuff. All right, finally, gibberellins. Gibberellins promote the germination of seeds by breaking dormancy. So you remember we had a hormone which inhibited seed production, seed growth. The gibberellins balance that. It promotes the germination of seeds by breaking down dormancy. It stimulates the production of enzymes, which break down the stored starches into sugars, provide energy for the growing seedling. If I can find it, I'll find a video, YouTube video that talks about how seeds grow. It is fascinating how the seed imbibes water, hits the starches, starts to feed the embryo, and all of a sudden roots and shoots are growing. Gibberellins are involved in fruit development, especially in stimulating fruit growth and size, and it helps break dormancy in buds and seeds, allowing for growth when conditions become more favorable. So let's go through the seed. When a seed absorbs water, gibberellins are produced in the embryo, and they stimulate the production of enzymes, which breaks down the starches in the seed, providing energy for the growing seedling. As the seedling begins to germinate, auxins now kick in, which are produced in growing regions such as their roots and the shoots. They encourage cell elongation, which helps the seedlings push through the soil. The cytokinins then help promote cell division in the roots and the shoots, supporting new growth. As seedling grows, these hormones work together. Gibberellins promote elongation. Oxidants ensure that the cells in the stem and the roots elongate, and the cytokinins enhance cell division and growth rate, allowing seedling to grow into a robust structure. To me, that is absolutely fascinating. That's a lot. All right, so Chapter 3, we looked at plant classifications, gymnosperms, angiosperms. We looked at monocots and dicots. We looked at annuals, biennials, perennials. Perennials we divided into bushy and woody. Then we looked at the plant structure, roots, stems, shoots. We talked about photosynthesis process where energy is made, sugars are converted, sugars are transported, sugars are stored, sugars are reconfigured. So they transport, the plant can use them. Then we talked about how the role of hormones in this entire process. That is Chapter 3. I hope this helped out in your understanding of plant structure and how plants function.